So, this guy ran a $2.8 million check fraud ring, and Instagram is what took him down. Investigators didn't outsmart him. He posted the whole thing himself. Chase Griffin, 26, was putting up photos of himself holding stacks of cash more than a foot high. Face in the shot. Tattoos in the shot. Those posts were recruitment ads, looking for strangers who'd hand over their bank accounts. What Chase never clocked was that the ad and the evidence were the same photo. Nobody had to go find him. He was already published. Everybody was looking at Chase. That was the business model. He needed strangers to see him, to want in, to slide into his messages with a bank account and a bad idea. He needed to be seen. That's also how they found him. His full name is Chase Matthew Griffin. 26 years old, out of Atlanta, Georgia, though he'd also been living out in Ontario and South Los Angeles. Prosecutors say he's a member of the South LA-based Crips. Online, he went by Trey. Now, $2.8 million is the kind of number that makes people squint at a headline. The math is not complicated. Chase stole checks out of the mail. No hacking, no elaborate wire scheme. He took paper checks out of collection boxes, the blue ones on the corner that people drop their mail into and never think about again.
The amount is clearly $5,500.
Then he either altered those checks or produced counterfeit versions of them, made payable to somebody new. And these were not birthday card checks. Prosecutors say they were routinely written for tens of thousands of dollars each. But a stolen check is worthless if you've got nowhere to put it. Chase needed real bank accounts, opened by real people with real IDs, and he needed a steady supply of them. So he advertised. In public on Instagram with his face in the picture. The posts were exactly what you're imagining. Chase, holding a banded brick of hundreds more than a foot high, held up toward the camera. Him in the frame. The tattoos in the frame. And the pitch underneath being, if you've got an account, come talk to me. One of his stories said, if you don't put a Chase in my hand by 4 p.m. Today you're literally an idiot. In his slang, a Chase meant a check drawn on J.P. Morgan. Another post, shot from the back of a Rolls-Royce, told anyone in LA with an account at that bank to call him right now. 20 to 90,000 next day. The man was running want ads for fraud. Once a check landed in one of those borrowed accounts, the operation turned into a foot race. Banks catch this stuff, but not instantly. There's a gap between a deposit posting and the fraud getting flagged, and Chase's entire scheme lived inside that gap. Deposit it, then empty it before anyone upstairs figures out the check is fake. And that race is the entire job. The check posts, the funds show up as available, and somebody has to be standing at a machine within hours. Chase was running a stack of very short cons, back to back, and the only way to make real money doing that is volume. More checks, more accounts, more strangers willing to say yes. Which is exactly why he could never stop posting. And about those tattoos. Chase is covered in them, body and face. One of them is a bank logo. The blue square one, J.P. Morgan Chase, done in the exact right shade of bright blue, sitting permanently on the body of a man running a check fraud operation against that same bank. It's also his first name, which I assume was the whole joke. He's also got 3 letters on him. WDC. Prosecutors told the court that stands for Wipe Down Crew, street slang for pulling every last dollar out of a fraud before it collapses. Which is a hell of a thing to have permanently written on your body when the whole operation depends on nobody being able to describe you. So he wore the bank's logo, and he wore his method, and then he photographed himself holding the proceeds. I genuinely don't know what to tell you. A business in North Hollywood was the first one to say out loud that something was wrong. Prosecutors say that in December of 2023, it mailed 3 checks worth $84,490 total, dropped in a USPS collection box in Tarzana, and went about their day. Those checks never reached the companies they were written for. They got fished out of the mail and turned up as deposits in JP Morgan accounts belonging to people with no connection to that business at all. By the time anybody traced the paper back through those accounts, the money had already walked out the door. And think about who eats that one. 3 checks, $84,000 and change, written by a business to companies that were expecting to get paid. Somebody did the work and sent an invoice. That money left the sender's account and never landed where it was supposed to. So now you've got a business telling its vendors the check went out, honest, and a bank staring at deposits it already released. Everybody in that chain loses time or money or both, and not one of them ever met Chase Griffin. The cash itself went out the way you'd expect. ATM withdrawals, Zelle payments, Cash App transfers, a plane ticket, and card purchases at a casino out in San Bernardino County. Run that loop enough times, across enough borrowed accounts, with checks written for tens of thousands a pop, and you land where prosecutors landed, at $2.8 million in proceeds for the ring. It got there in medium-sized bites, over and over, for as long as the posts kept working. And that $2.8 million is the ring number, by the way, not one man's payday. Plenty of hands were in this, which turns out to matter quite a bit. If you're into this kind of thing, go ahead and subscribe. I dig up stories like this every week. While Chase was posting Rolls-Royce content and foot-high stacks of hundreds, there was a second group of people in this story getting dragged under with him. The account holders. Think about who answers an ad like that. Somebody broke. Somebody who sees a guy on the internet with a foot of cash in his hand and figures, "I have a checking account, that's the whole ask." Chase made it sound like a favor. Let a check land, take a cut, walk away. And he knew exactly what he was buying, by the way. An account number was the least of it. What he needed was the one thing his operation could not fake, a real customer with real history at a real bank. A brand new account taking in a huge check gets looked at fast. An account that's been sitting there, paying a phone bill for years, buys you a little more room to move. So, the people he recruited were the infrastructure of the whole thing. Without them, Chase has a pile of worthless paper. Except that account has your name on it. Your ID opened it. Your signature is on the paperwork. When a stolen check gets deposited into your account and emptied out through your card, the trail starts at you. Chase is somewhere else entirely, with a phone full of fresh applicants. Some of them probably figured they were being clever. A few $100 for letting a check clear. No risk, nobody gets hurt. But federal investigators don't stop at the account. They pull the deposit, they pull the identification used to open it, they pull the messages, and every one of those threads has a person sitting on the other end of it. Chase built a machine where he was never the one holding the bag. And the case against his co-conspirators is still open, which means there are people out there right now who answered an Instagram post and are still waiting to find out what it cost them. The ending took a while to arrive for Chase himself. On July 16th of 2025, he got pulled over at a traffic stop in Conyers, Georgia. Officers found roughly 300 grams of marijuana, a scale, and a firearm. And he was released. He walked. Sit with the timing on that for a second. A man in the middle of a multi-million-dollar federal fraud ring gets stopped in Georgia with a gun and a scale in the car, and he goes home the same day. The officers in Conyers had no reason to know anything about stolen checks out of a mailbox in Tarzana. But it shows you how long somebody can keep operating in plain sight while the paperwork catches up to them. Later that year, authorities picked him back up, and this time he stayed picked up. He's been in federal custody since September of 2025. On March 5th, he pleaded guilty. 1 count, conspiracy to commit bank fraud. Then came sentencing, in front of a federal judge named Josephine Staten. And his own defense lawyer is the one who put the Instagram part on the record. His federal public defender, Elizabeth Faber, asked the court for 5 years. Her argument was that the scheme wasn't sophisticated. That's a real sentencing factor, by the way. Federal judges hand down more time when a scheme shows planning and complexity, so the defense fights to convince the court that the whole thing was amateur hour. To make that argument, she had to spell out how he did it. So she put it in writing. In her sentencing memo, she told the judge that Chase recruited bank account holders through his public Instagram accounts, often showing his own face and identifying tattoos, and that he was, in her words, ultimately identified because of those posts. His own lawyer. In a federal filing, confirming that the man got caught because he advertised. And then she put it even plainer. A scheme built on public self-promotion under an identifiable persona, she told the court, is the opposite of sophisticated or complex. That was the defense. Your Honor, look how bad he was at this. The judge gave him 9 years in federal prison, almost double what his lawyer asked for, plus $307,386 in restitution. That last number is going to bother some of you, and it should. The ring moved $2.8 million. The restitution attached to Chase is $307,000 and change. The gap between those two figures is money that's simply gone. Pulled out of machines, pushed through payment apps, dropped at a casino, spent on a flight. 9 years is real time, though. The federal system doesn't do parole, so he serves nearly all of it. Chase Griffin will be somewhere in his mid-30s when he comes out, and every photo he ever posted will still be sitting on a server with his face in it. So the stacks, the tattoos, the Rolls-Royce posts, all of it worked exactly as designed. He wanted strangers to find him, and strangers found him. The federal government just happened to be one of the strangers. He moved $2.8 million through the bank he had tattooed on his body, and nobody stopped him for months. His lawyer's phrase is the one that sticks with me. The opposite of sophisticated. 9 years for a scheme that was never once hiding, run by a guy who published his own case file, one photo at a time. More stories like this on the channel.